Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today on Masech the Shavuot daf Yud. We are going to begin on Yud Amud Alv, about 14 lines down, with the words Rameir Omer Kol HaSeirim Kaparasun Shava. So on Beis Amud Beis, the lengthy Mishnah told us the following: that what does it mean that every seir the kapara is the same? So Rashi there says that Kol Seiri Musafin. Anytime a sa'ir was brought as a carbon musaf, bein seir hanasa bechutz Yom Kippurim, including the seir which was brought outside, which was on Yom Kippur, bein shor golim, also the seir that was brought during the various festivals, bein shor Rosh Chodesh, also when it came to Rosh Chodesh, kapros and shava. Their kapara is the same. Those karbanos provide kapara for multiple things. Kulan mechaprin al kol, bein al she'ein bo yediyah b'tchila, v'yesh bo yediyah b'sof. So all these different ones, they are mechaper for the following. One is in the situation where a person did not have yediyah at the beginning, but there is yediyah b'sof. So we did mention before, when it comes to the opinion of the Tanakama, in the situation where a person does not have yediyah b'tchila, but he has yediyah b'sof, that we thought this seir hanas b'chutz b'yom kippur mechaper. And okay, but this opinion Rameir holds it's not just the seir hanas b'chutz of Yom Kippur is mechaper, but also these other ones. A soir that's brought on Rosh Chodesh, soir that's brought for Regalim, is also mechaper for that. Continuing in this Rashi, Bein al she'ein bo yediyah lo b'tchila v'lo b'sof. Also, it's mechaper when there's no yediyah at the beginning or the end. Now, again, we actually had a machlokus before, which we spent some time on, Rabbi Yehuda and Rav Shimon. According to the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, he felt that when it comes to no yediyah, not the beginning or the end, that the seir golim and the seir Rosh Chodesh is mechaper. And Rav Shimon held that it's true the seir golim is mechaper if there's no yediyah b'tchila or sof, but the Rosh Chodesh is not going to be mechaper because it's mechaper for something else, according to the opinion of Rav Shimon. But none of them hold, Rabbi Yehuda or Rav Shimon, that the seir hanas b'chutz for Yom Kippur is mechaper for ein ba v'ein ba. But Rameir holds that's not true. And doesn't stop there. Bein al tahar she'achal asatame. Also, when it comes to someone who's tahar, who eats a carbon tame, we've been talking about a case where the person was tame and he ate something which was tahar. Here, in the opposite situation, these things are also going to work. But Nafkamina says Rashi latuma she'ira bein zeh lezeh. If there was a tuma between the two, so did you already achieve kapara from these other things? However, and we're gonna eventually get to the Gemara, but Rashi says here on the Mishnah, avol seir hanas bifnim lo necholav. They don't disagree when it comes to the seir hanas bifnim. Shein mechaper im elu v'lo elu toilin es tuliyasai kishesh b'yediyah b'tchila ve'ein bo yediyah b'sof. Okay, I'm reading the Gemara, which we are going to continue with. So in the case when we're dealing with the situation of yesh bo yediyah b'tchila, but there's no yediyah b'sof, so only that's when the seir hanas b'fnim will be toila, until once you eventually have yediyah, so then you'll have achieved yediyah b'sof, then you can bring a carbon oil b'yared. Just like if you have yediyah b'tchila b'sof, you bring a carbon oil b'yared. So if you had the yediyah b'tchila but not b'sof, so at least you have the seir nasa bifnim. Now the seir nasa bifnim will not be mechaper on the other situations of ein yediyah b'tchila, or again, if you are tahar and you eat something tameh. Okay. So that was a lot of discussion before we even begin the first word, but now we understand Rameir. Hopefully the Gemara will make more sense. So Rameir oimer kol ha'seirim kapras and shava v'chul. So Omer Rav Chama bar Rav Chanina. So my time to Rameir. Why does Rameir tackle hold that everything is all linked together, and therefore whatever seir we're talking about, with the exclusion of the seir hanasa bifnim, but the one which is seir hanasa b'chutz, regolim, rosh chodesh, they can all be mechaper for all different things. So I'm across seir v'sair, because it says sa'ir and then says v'sa'ir. The fact that it has this extra vav is huksha kol ha's'irim zelazeh. Vav moisiv al inyan rishain. So the fact that they're linked comes to show that each sa'ir, whichever one you're bringing for whatever reason, is mechaper for all the other things. Now, kol sakadadaitin, we have in our original thought process of our havamina, kol chad v'chad mechavri gamar. One from each other we learn. So look in Rashi, Shel Pesach hasamach Rosh Chodesh. So Pesach, which of course is the regolim, is linked to Rosh Chodesh. So Gomer Rosh Chodesh shel chaper al tahar shaychel as tameh. So we learn out from there that someone who's tahar eats a carbon tameh. Rosh Chodesh sevir Kuram Meir, Kuram Shimon. Shel Sukkos hasamach was shel Yom Kippurim. Sukkos is near Yom Kippur. Gomer mid Yom Kippurim was she'en bo yediyah b'tchila. A person who does not have yediyah b'tchila, v'yesh bo yediyah b'sof, that it will not just the Yom Kippurs, the seir b'chutz is mechaper, but also of the regolim. V'shel Yom Kippurim, v'shel Sukkos, l'ein bo yediyah lo b'tchila lo b'sof, that over there we can learn out there's no yediyah b'tchila b'sof, and it works with the seir regolim. So to work by Yom Kippur, v'hadar gamri kuhu kol chad v'chad, so we're basically learning one from the other, all the different sources. So that's what we thought originally. Mechavi Gomer. So Vayam Rabbi Yochanan Kol HaTorah Kula Lamidin Lamad Melamed. You can make a hekesh from one to the other. Hekesh is a possible and acceptable way of learning. Chos Mekadshim Shein Lamidin Lamed Melamed. You're not allowed to do that. So apparently, if we're learning out a hekesh from one to the next, that's usually good. But when it comes to kadshim, we don't do such a thing. Says Rashi, Kulhum Rosh Chodesh Gomer L'Tahar Shachos Atamim Rosh Chodesh Minayu L'She'en Bo Yediyah Klal V'Kul, etc. Okay, so how do you know? So Halu Kasha Kulhu Mikama Gamri. They're actually all learning out from the first one, namely from Rosh Chodesh. So Tinach called the Kasabe V'Sa'ir. I can understand them because they all say the extra vav elsewhere V'Sa'ir. So therefore it's all connected to Rosh Chodesh. But you can't learn one to the next, to the next, to the next. Hatzeres V'Kippurim, the Lo Kasabe V'Sa'ir Minoam. The problem is, even though Shavuot, of course, is one of the holidays, but maybe the Sa'ir that's brought on Atzeres or the Sa'ir brought on Yom Kippur, Ser Hanas B'chutz, doesn't work. The sermon on. So Elohim Rav Yonah Omer Kra. The pasuk says Eila Tasul Hashem b'moadechem. So Hukshu Kol Hamoadim Kulon Zelazeh. So in this case, because it says these are the holidays, so therefore that's coming to tell you that we link them all together. So that's how we understand this. Okay. So the question is, we're comparing them all through this pasuk because these are the Moadim, but Rosh Chodesh is not a Moed. So how do you understand that? So Ivra. So Be'emes, in truth, Rosh Chodesh Nami Ikri Moed. Rosh Chodesh is also a holiday. Kaniyam Rabaya, Diyam Rabaya Tammuz Dahi Shaita. Tammuz on that year, Malui Milua. It was actually a full month. This is Gemara at the end of Tainus. Dechsiv Kra Alai Moyed Lishbar B'chayri. So what does that mean? So Rashi quotes the Gemara in Tainus. It says Tammuz Dahi Shaita Shel Shana Hashniya Lisis Mitzrayim. The second year, when after we left Mitzrayim, Shenishtalchu Ba Meraglim, and we sent out the spies. Be'esrim V'tisha was Be'esrim V'tisha B'Sivan. It was on the 29th day of the month of Sivan. So again, we have to hold cup and understand we're going to try to get to Tisha B'Av, which is when they came back and gave back the evil report 40 days later. So we say Melui LaTalmuz, that Talmuz was a full month. Lafikach ira boy yoim chazaras maraglim b'shmoina b'av. So which means the maraglim returned on the 8th. V'yivcha ambu laylahu b'tisha b'av. And they cried on the 9th day, which of course, bochu b'chiyah shalchinam, v'hok v'hem b'chiyah l'doirais, as the famous line is. So the point is that Tammuz was called complete. And it says, Lishbor b'chayri, that referring to the Chorban Habayis. So anyway, we learn out from here that it's called Karlai Moed. It's called a Moed. And we're talking specifically about the Moed called upon me, which is because of the calculation of Rosh Chodesh. Therefore, the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed on Tisha B'Av, and they cried on Tisha B'Av, which is why it's cited in Eicha. Rabbi Yochanan. So that's basically the answer we learn out from all the Moadim together, and therefore Rosh Chodesh, which is also called a Moed. So that's how we know, according to Rabbi Meir, they're all connected. So Rabbi Yochanan, what did Rabbi Meir? We had said this already. Rabbi Meir, who says that all the Seirim are mechaper for other things, however, the exception is the Sa'ir Hanas B'fnim. That is not mechaper. V'hein ein mechaprin kaparasai. V'hein ein mechaprin kaparaso hu ein mechaper kaparasin kapar. Okay, let's go slow. So the Sa'ir Hanas B'fnim is not mechaper kaparasan. V'hein ein mechaprin kaparasan. So let's understand this. Who ain't a mechaper kaparasan? Why? Why is it that it doesn't work? Says the Gemara. Kapar achas mechaper vein mechaper shtei kaparos. Because the pasuk says it's a kapar achas. It can do a kapara for one thing. The Seir Hanasa Bifnim cannot forgive all these other things, like Rameir said, because it's only kapar achas. Hein ein mechaperin kaparasai. And they are not mechaper for it. This is like whatever it's mechaper is something in which can only take place. The kapar can only happen once a year, which, as we said, is specifically a situation where you had yediyah b'tchil but not yediyah b'soif. So in that situation, it's dafka the sir hanasa b'fnim, dafka on Yom Kippur, which is achas b'shana, and it can only have one kapar. Tani mehachi. Al she'en bo yediyah lo b'tchil lo b'soif. Also, the al she'en bo yediyah b'tchil lo yeshba yediyah b'soif, as well as the altar she'achos atameh, all these three different things, the Sir Haragolim, the Sir Rosh Chadashim, and the Sir Nasa B'chutz Mechaper Divrei Meir. Now, why does he say those? He was very specific, but he only said Sir Nasa B'chutz. The Il Sir Hanasa B'fnim Shaira V'Kaprasan Nami Shaira. However, when he doesn't mention anything about the Sir Nasa B'fnim, says Rashi, Shul Hisker Kan, so Yesh Bo Yediyah B'tchila, the Ein Bo Yediyah B'sof, B'Kapara Shul Elu. So it's not included, the situation where there's Yediyah B'tchila, not B'sof, it's not included in all of these, because it's not true. The only thing that a situation of Yediyah B'tchila, Ein Bo Yediyah B'sof works, at least it's Toila, is Dafka the Ser Hanas B'fnim. Okay, question 11. Rameir Omer Kol Asirim Kaparas and Shava. Elu Sirim Kaparas and Shava Rameir. So we said Sir Nas B'chutz, the Sir Rosh Chodesh, and the Sir Regalim, and he agrees to all of them. Ve'ez Sir Maidu Kuli Alma V'loi Pligi Alma Hu Mechaper. So that's the Sir Nas B'fnim. It's not the same. It's only going to be Mechaper for the person who has Yediyah B'tchila, but not B'sof. Okay. That is the correct answer. And we will keep going. So let me make sure that... Okay, we didn't get to any other questions. Okay, let's continue. Hayi Rav Shimon Omer. Seiru Rosh Chadashim Mechaper and Altar Shaychel Satami B'chulu. Okay. So, that was the sheath of Rameir. Okay? Rameir holds that if a person is tahar, and he eats something tameh, so that the din is that all of the seirim will be mechaper for that. However, the Mishnah said, going back to Beis Beis, Rav Shimon Omer, Siru Rosh Chodashim mechaper al atar shaychos tameh. He says that's not true. Rav Shimon holds when it comes to the sir of Rosh Chodesh, that is what will be mechaper of a person who is tahar who eats something tameh. And Vishal Regoim is mechaper al she'en bo yediyah lo b'tchil b'sof, which is everyone holds that's true. The question is Rosh Chodesh included? Vishal Yom Kippur mechaper al she'en bo yediyah b'tchila al yesh bo yediyah b'sof. Okay, that's the sir hanasa b'chutz. Okay, fine. So that's because the ein kaparas and shava, the kapara is not the same. And then the Mishnah continues. All right. So Rav Shimon Omer Sirash Chadashim Mechaprin Altar Shaychas Atami B'chul, again, which disagrees with what we just said with Rav Meir. Now Bishlam Rosh Chadashim Lo Mechapri Ad Regolim. So I can understand why he holds that the Sir of Rosh Chodesh and the Sir of Regolim have different purposes. They're different karbanos, different times of the year. So I understand why the Rosh Chodesh will not be mechaper for the Regolim. Diamakra Avain Avain. So it says Gzer Shava of Avain Avain Echad Hu Naisa Ve'enu Naisa Shnei Avainais. It only helps with one Avain, but not Shnei Avainais, not two Avainais. So therefore, the Rosh Chodesh can only be mechaper, as he said, dafka in the situation where a person is tahar who eats tameh. That's what it'll be mechaper for. El the regolim the chaper the Rosh Chodashim. Maybe the sirash of the regolim can be mechaper for other things as well, not just as we mentioned, but also this person who's tameh who ate tahar who ate tameh. So again, he learns out through a miyat in both psukim by Regolim and by Rosh Chodesh to tell us the din is that they can only be mechaper for one thing. Now, Bishlam Regolim lo mechaper nadi Yom Kippurim. I can understand why the Yom Kippur kapara, which is, as we said before, the toila of yesh yediyah b'tchil v'ein yediyah b'sof, di'amar kra achas b'shana kapara zulo tehi el achas b'shana. So I understand why Yom Kippur is only mechaper on, as we said, or at least it's toila, someone who has yediyah b'tchil but not yediyah b'sof, and that's it. El od Yom Kippurim nechaperu ad regolim. So as we said before, Omikra achas kapara achas mechaper and mechaper shtei kaparos. So basically, as we now understand, the Shita of Rav Shimon holds that we have psukim which basically say that each sa'ir, whether it's on Yom Kippur or the Regolim or Rosh Chodesh, they all can only be mechaper for one thing, and that's it. B'haksiv achas b'sa'ir nasibifnim hudachsiv. So the kasha is, well, that drasha is actually, of that word achas, is referring to the Sir Hanas Bifnim, which we all agree. You're right, but Sir Hanas Bifnim, even Rameir holds it can only be mechaper, but it's not talking about the Sir Hanas B'chutz. So how do you know about the Sir Hanas B'chutz? So Merkra milvad, as we continue to Yodam and Beis, milvad chatas hakipurim, the iskish chitzoin lepanimi. So we compare the chitzon to the panimi, just like when it came to the Sir HaPanimi, it's dafka one thing, which is mechaper. That's it, just one thing. Which on Yom Kippur, as we said, that's it. So too, when it comes to b'chutz, is also only one thing, and therefore, basically, we see, unlike Rameir, Rav Shimon holds that each sa'ir can only be mechaper for one thing. Okay. Rav Shimon Yehuda Omer Mishmoi v'chul. So let's go back. Okay, so let's go back to Beis Amud Beis. It's a really long Mishnah, and we want to make sure that we understand what this Mishnah is talking about. So let's go back. So again, Rav Shimon once again held that when it came to the Sir Rosh Chodashim, it's mechaper and the Tar Shachos Atame. The Regolim is mechaper al Shein Bo Yediyah, not B'tchil or B'sof, which we saw before. Rabbi Yehuda and the previous daf said the same thing. The Shoyim Kippur mechaper l'shein bo yediyah b'tchil v'yish bo yediyah b'sof. Okay, fine. Rav Shimon ben Yehuda Omer Mishmoi Seiri Rosh Chodashim. He said when it came to Seir Rosh Chodesh mechaperin al tar shaychos atame. So he holds that the Seir Rosh Chodesh is a tar shaychos atame, which is the same thing as Rav Shimon. This is Rabbi Shimon ben Yehuda. Keep on going. Moisevelahin shor golim. We add on to the regolim shemachaprin al tar shaychos atame. The al she'in ba yediyah lo b'tchil lo b'soif. So he actually holds that when it comes to the regolim, so the base is Rosh Chodesh, so then you have the regolim that it's mechaper on a tar shaychos atame. So tar shaychos atame, unlike Rav Shimon, who holds that it could only Rosh Chodesh is mechaper for it. So he holds no. Rosh Chodesh is mechaper for a tahor person who ate tameh. But also the regolim is mechaper for that, and also Baal Shein B'Yediyah L'Chil B'Soif. Moiselin Shel Yom Kippurim Shehein mechaperin al atar shaychos atame. Yal Shein B'Yediyah L'Chil B'Soif. Yal Shein B'Yediyah B'Chil Al Yesh B'Yediyah B'Soif. So it's a pretty unbelievable thing. It's like tears. That Rosh Chodesh is mechaper for one thing, the Regolim is mechaper for two things, and then Yom Kippur is mechaper for three. So that's basically what it says. Okay. All right. So with that said, let's hopefully now understand the Gemara better. So Rav Shimon ben Yehuda Omer Mishmoi v'chul. So Ma'ishna the Rosh Chodashim Dol mechaper ad Regolim. So again, when it comes to Rosh Chodesh, it's only mechaper for one thing. The person who is tahor eats tameh. So why doesn't it also mechaper for that which the Sira Golem is mechaper? Yomikra Avon Avon Echad who Avon Echad who Naisa in a Naisa Shnei Avonais. Therefore, it can only works for one thing. But the Regolim Nami Lo Nechapru Ad Rosh Chodashim Yomikra Oisa Oisa who Naisa Avon Vein Acher Naisa Avon. So how could it say that it's mechaper for two things, right? According to him, so oisa lo mashmele. No, that's he doesn't hold of that drasha. There's no miyat for the regolim, so therefore it can be moisef. So mashon the regolim lo mechaper yadayim kippurim. Why, when it comes to the regolim, it's only two and not that which is for Yom Kippur, which again is yediyah b'tchila but no yediyah b'sof. Yomer kra achas b'shana kapar zulo tehel achas b'shana. So yachid Yom Kippurim nami lo nechaper ad regolim achas ksiv kapar achas mechaper mechaper shtei kaparos. So why did he say it's mechaper three things on Yom Kippur? It seems that it should only be mechaper one. Dafka yediyah b'tchil and yediyah b'sof. So achas lo mashmele. So I don't have that drasha. So amai. The chiksiv achas b'sar hanas b'f. Why? The chiksiv achas b'sar hanas b'fnim ksiv. Right, and he doesn't compare, as we said, according to the other shita, that we make a hekesh chitzon l'panimi. No, you're right. When it comes to sir hanas b'fnim, I agree that it's only one thing, that it's only a person who has yediyah b'tchila, no yediyah b'soif. However, I don't extend that to the ser b'chutz. When it comes to ser and b'chutz, that could include all three things. So yihachi the regom nami nechaper Yom Kippurim. So maybe it should also work. The chiksiv achas b'ser hanas b'fnim ksiv. So if you want to say that, so the regom also should be mechaper for Yom Kippur. For the again, if you're not learning a drasha, and so why are we saying it's only mechaper for two things? Maybe also the regolim should mechaper all three things, just like Yom Kippur, for the same reason. So if that's the truth, then why by the regolim is it two things? B'shani hachad yemerkov v'chiper aharon al karnoisav achas b'shana. It says that he will be mechaper on its corners once a year. So karnoisav the mizbech hapanimi hu the kapar achas mechaper. Ve'ena mechaper shtei kaparos. It's davka. This drasha is because it says the karnaisav of the mizbech hapanimi. So we're talking about the ser hapanimi, that it only works for one thing. Hachitzon, when it comes to mizbech hachitzon, which is the ser hachitzon, afil shtei kaparos. So basically, the drasha is that this pasuk tells us that when it comes to Yom Kippur, Yom Kippur, it's dafka. It's only by the sa'ir bifnim do we have this situation. Only one could be mechaper. However, when it comes to the sa'ir b'chutz, no, that could be mechaper even more than one. Okay, so that's the idea behind that. Okay, all right. There's not a lot of Rashis on this. Okay, let's keep on going. So that's the drasha, because it says Aaron al karnaisa of achas mashana karnaisa the mizbech v'nimi hu dem kapara achas machaber and machaber shtei kaparos the chitzon afir shtei kaparos. Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Okay, let's go slow. Let's see if there's a question on here, which I think there is. Let's look at question TB 5. Ksiv v'chipra Aaron al karnaisav achas b'shana midam chatas hakipurim achas b'shana yichaper. B'gemar Yolef dehu ein mechaper kaparas acherim v'acherim ein mechaperin kaparasoi heich ali b'rameir kol hasirim kaprasin shava v'aksiv achas b'shana. So how does, according to Rameir, who says they're all the same, so how does he understand that? So he said ulai zed davka b'mizbech b'chutz, right? Avol penimi zed davka achas b'shana, right? V'gam ksiv b'moadechem v'zeh l'hoisiv kol devarim shenikra moed k'mo Yom Kippurim b'chutz or shechodesh muadim. This may be the whole answer of what we're looking for here. So let me just point this out again, that this would be TB 5. That's an unbelievable answer that I gave there. But that seems like that's what they're looking for. That when Rameir holds dafka, when it comes to the seer bifnim, that's only one kapara. You can learn out from this pasuk, but not necessarily when it comes to the mizbeach b'chutz. Okay. Okay. Omer ul omer Rabbi Yochanan tamidin shul hutzruchu l'tzibor. When it comes to the carbon talmud, which is no longer needed for the tzibor, niftin tamimin. They can be paida even as it's a talmud. It doesn't, even without a mum. It doesn't actually have to develop a mum. So what's going on over here? So Rashi comes to the rescue. So what do you mean? Why would you not need a talmud? The talmud has to be brought every day. The talmud shel shachar, talmud shel bin arbayim. So Rashi says that ein poichsin mishisha teloyim. We always have to have at least 6 sheep ready to go in the lishkas hatiloyim. When Rosh Chodesh Nisan comes, loya makribim shuv karbanoi sibor memois atruma shel shtakid. You're not allowed to bring a carbon from last year's funds. It has to be from the Truma Chadasha. As the Gemara says, Rosh Hashanah, it's Gemara in Shkolim also. Chodesh b'chadshu, Chodesh v'haba, carbon b'Truma Chadasha. V'nimsu, b'chol shana v'shana, we find every year, because of that, arba toim b'lishkas ha'toim m'mayis ha'truma ha'yeshana. That you end up having some extra animals because basically, the last day, you still always have to have 6 animals, regardless. Now, in the last day, you're only makriv 2 of them, right? A talmud shel shachar, talmud shel merbayim, which means you're left with 4. What do you do with them? So you can be paided, and the chiddush is even tamimim, says Rashi, lachshirim b'shanazu, so you can be mashir for this year. Mechalon oisal moischulin. You can be mechal these carbonais onto money. The oisam hamois, and now you take that money. Yechol lamois or truma. Now you can use it. Yishana shoisim mehen rikui pachim sipo lebeis kadosh kadoshim. So you can use it to be able to fix up certain things, the base of Mikdash, etc. So you can actually take that money, you can be purchase it with it. Now the Chiddush, as the Gemara in Menachos tells us, according to Rashi, Nevi'im kol behema tameya. Do you remember bebali mumin shenifdu hakosam adaber? Well, normally it needs to get a mum before you can be poided. The Chiddush here is when it comes to these 4 Taloyim, even as a Tomim. So back to the Gemara. Yosef Rabba v'karmer lo hashmai samalei Rav Chisda man saisloch Rav Yochanan Rabboch. Who's going to listen to you? And this is Omer Ula Omer Rav Yochanan. This is Ula's quoting his Rebbe. Who's going to listen to you, Ula, and Rav Yochanan? V'chi kedusha shebehen laheichen halcha. How is it possible you can just be poided? There's kedusha sagov on these animals. We don't just say that it automatically can be poided. You need to first, again, wait until it develops a mum. So otherwise, where does this kedusha sagov go? So Amalei at lutizra deloyam rinan kedusha shebehen laheichen halcha. So he says, and you don't hold that we don't say this svara of kedusha shebehen laheichen halcha. Again, says Rashi, demidi that tzibor lo amrin kedusha shebehen laheichen halcha. Heicha dechil tzarich takana. So in this situation, we make an exception, but Tanan, as we learned, meiser hakatyrus. If let's say you have leftover katyrus from the year before, right, these spices, mayu oisin behen. What do you do? So mafrishin mimena schar ha'omanim. So you could be mafresh from it payment to workers that you may have. That's allowed. Says Rashi, Matrumas Halishka, Schar Emoini Beis Aftinos Maftumi Hakatyrus, because the Beis Aftinos, we see in great length in Mishnah Shkolim, and of course in Yuma, talks about how they made the spices. So you have to compensate them. And it says, Umachalon Oiso Al Mois Ha'umanim, you can be machalod onto their money. Noisan Umanim Bescharan, the Chayzin Belachan Oisim Matruma Chadasha. So we're asked about my name of kedusha shebehen laheichen halcha. Well, you should ask that same kasha, says Rashi. You would think that katsheshus b'kli sharis, once it's ground up into a kli sharis, b'kivan dekadshalo b'kli have a kedusha saguf. So therefore, it already took upon itself kedusha saguf. So how can you do this to these spices? So obviously we see a raya that we don't say this. Just like the Ketyrus, we don't say where the Kedusha go by Kedusha Zaguf. We also won't say this by the Talayim. So remember 1 second. Ketyrus Ka'amrit, you're trying to bring a raya from Ketyrus, Shani Ketyrus, to Kedusha's Domim Hu. This is actually a case of Kedusha's Domim. Why? So Rashi says, Ein ba'el Kedusha's Domim, Shalacha Mitrumas Halishka. You only took it from the Trumas Halishka. Although the Kli, Lo Kadsha, the Tikdish Kedusha's Aguf, the Mechateshes, once you grind it up, Lav Kli Sharasi. Okay. Anyway, so the answer is that it's not necessarily a raya, because when it comes to the Ketyrus, it's still Kedushas Domim, it has the status of Kedushas Domim, so you can be poided. Or you can give it to the Umanim, etc., exactly how it says how it's done. However, when it comes to the situation of these 6 or these 4 tamidim, so that's different. Okay, all right. Let's look at. We're going to stop there. Let's see. Okay. TA, maybe now we're up to TA4. Tamidim shluhutzu chatzibur madinu uvamazet toloi. So we basically said, the kash is, can you be pointed as a tomim, or you have to wait till it's bal mum? L'tanakam niftu tamidim, delayed based in masnalehen. So we didn't actually see this, but the reason, let's see if Rashi points this out. But that's the reason, because it was masna based in it. That's how it works. That it's this was the stipulation. This was the understanding. and therefore you can be pointed even while it is a tomim. However, Rav Shimon does not hold of this. Rather, he holds delosvi lay based in masna, and it says mekitzin behenes mizbeach. What was the second part of the question? Tamidim shel hutzach l'tzibur madina. I'm not sure if we completely saw all of that, but at least that's the beginning. So, Rav Yochanan tamidim shel hutzach l'tzibur niftin tamimim. Fine. So that is definitely part of the answer. TA 4, and we're going to continue with this discussion a little bit more. Let's see what I have for question TB 6. Eich mechalon hakatayris al mois v'chi kedusha shmil heichen hocha. Umadu iyef sheluman mekan latamidin sheyiftu tamimim. So I wrote leiv based in mastalehen. L'gabi hakatayris. Fine. Ein shum davar acher lasois. Avol l'gabi habehema kamo meiser tamidin. Yesh, you could graze it until it gets a mum. V'ulai rak asri kain yochel liftois v'loi kamo shehi tamim. Not sure if that's entirely what we're looking for. We're at least looking by the Keturis as Kedushas Damim, so that's why it's not necessarily a Raya. We're going to do Iyasha Luma Mekan, because maybe it's talking Dafka that the Keturis is Kedushas Damim, and here we're talking about Kedushas Growth.